Good evening. Can you hear me? Hmm. Hi, guys. Can you guys hear me? Hmm. Oh, good. Yay. Thank you. Hey, Jody. Can you hear me? Hi, guys. It's not quite 7 yet, so I was just waiting for more people to join. I see that Jody has joined on, hoping she can speak.
Oh, wow. Now I see myself. Can you hear me and see me? Thanks, Andrea. I love you. Okay. She's like my sister. Okay. So, and she's in your diocese, actually. So, okay.
That's
So
great.
you
Hey,
can,
Jody. Yes, I can see you. Can you see me? And hear
yeah.
me? Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Perfect. Love it when
Okay.
technology works. We still have a few minutes and
Oh, yeah, we're fine. I came in
perfect.
early because I thought, oh boy, what if like I want to make sure we were good to go.
Absolutely.
So how many
Absolutely. Thank
parents do
you.
we have signed up for this thing?
Um, Nate, I'm not sure how many have registered. So far we have 8 people signed in so far. But I
Oh,
didn't I
wow.
didn't check with Nate to see how many people had registered.
Well, you're recording it anyways.
Yes, I
So,
am. Yes. And for those that are on already, I am recording it. So, um, if that's an issue, go ahead and you can sign off, and I will put this out in the Wildcat Weekly.
okay.
Take a look here.
Yeah. So, okay. So I can see everybody. I can see you. And Microsoft and Teams doesn't kick you out after 45 minutes. Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Your backdrop is really good. That dark blue, very, sort of scholastic and professional.
Thank you. I like it. That Wildcat color, right? And that
Yeah.
beautiful little make it a great day.
With the Madonna in the background there. And so, okay, so while we're waiting for parents, here's my funny Madonna story. So when I was a kid, because I'm as Catholic as a rosary bead, when I was a kid, I would always do the prayer, Hail Mary, full of grace, with my aunts and stuff or my mom. And I thought Hale was her first name and Mary was her last name, right? Like Jenna Jones. And so every time I would pray to the Virgin Mother, I would say, Hi, Hail Mary, it's me, right? So when I was in 5th grade, I learned that hail was a salutation, and I freaked. And so I went to Father McGinnity, who was the pastor. He became a Monsignor actually. And I said, "Oh, I'm in trouble." And he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well," I said, "I've been calling Jesus's mom Hail for years." I was 11, for years. And I hear that Hail is a salutation and that she really doesn't have a last name, that Mary is her first name, but she's used to me calling her Hail, and I'm scared if I call her anything else, she won't know it's me." And he said, "I'll take care of this." And so he goes like this, and he goes, "Right, right, yeah, okay, okay, I'll tell her." He says, "Well, I just I just said a prayer to His Holiness, and I just communicated with your angels, and they all said that if you want to call her Hail, that she would be delighted and honored." And so to this day,
Oh, that's
if I
funny.
if I if I say a prayer to the Virgin Mother, I still say, "Hi, Hail, it's me."
I
I
Let's make
still, yeah. And he said that was okay. And my cousin, who was a priest, said that was okay too. But how
there's
little kids are so literal, you know,
yes, yes. I'm looking here. I've already got looks like I have some questions already. Jody, I'm gonna just open it up. Let's
about
see.
Hail Mary
Oh,
or
no. No, no, not at all. Let's see. Okay, good. So I just got some information. Nate just shared with me that 153 parents have registered, which is great.
wow.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So that's great. Thank you for that information. Um, yeah, I have a story about Hey Mary, it's me, Margaret. So we'll share that after.
Oh, that's a great book. Oh my gosh. I read
There
that.
you
Oh,
go.
and by the way, while we're waiting to begin, because we might as well address this now. If any parents, because I know a couple of kids came up to me and wanted my book. So if any parents, want to order my book, it's PG-11. Even PG-10, as long as the parent reads it first. Um, what I'd recommend is that any parents who want a copy of the book, they should just put their names on a list in your office, and
Okay.
then give a deadline for the list. Say, I want, all the names within 2 weeks. And then once you get all the names, the parent needs to tell you, identify their family, who they are, the parents, and then how they want me to inscribe the book
Ah,
to them, to their family name, to their children, to a child. And then I will sign a bunch of book plates. I'll personalize them and send them to you. And all the parents have to do when they get them is peel the back and stick the personalized book plate onto the title page. It actually makes the book more valuable, which is so weird to me. But in any event, I'll make sure, and it'll be like we'll do it as a fundraiser for your school.
oh, thank you, Jody. But I tell you,
Right.
these you're gonna love our parents, and I'm watching them jump on. We have 24 people already. We have another minute to go, and we'll just like we did with the kids today, Jody, we will begin everything with prayer, and we will pray the
Okay.
direction of intention. Um, and then we'll get to go. How you doing? You doing okay? Got a little bit of rest in between?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got a little bit of rest, and it's nice because Andrew's like my sister, so it's nice and
Have
you
somebody
are an
here.
amazing principal. I
Ah,
had such an amazing day over there today, and I want to work more with the school. Your kids, those hugs that we got when I was wearing my
great.
crossing guard uniform, um, those were probably some of the best hugs I've had, maybe ever. They were just so heartfelt and so adorable.
Those are our wildcats. They're wonderful. So okay, so here we go. It just hit 7. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for jumping on, for joining this. I think just it's a really important day that we've had here. Jody has been so wonderful in sharing with us her story. She is an author and New York Times bestseller list and all that kind of wonderful stuff, but this is her story. And I think the way that she shared her story with our students today really resonated. And then we had some teacher PD afterwards, and that was fantastic. And now it's time for the parents. So before this is Jody, but before we do that, as we're going to do everything, we're going to say pray the direction of intention. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. My God, we give you this time. Please give us the grace to conduct ourselves during it in a manner most pleasing to you. Amen. In the name of the Father and the Son of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I started to pray and started to introduce you and went back to prayer. So Jody, the floor is yours. Take it
Hi,
away.
everybody. Hi, I'm Jody. And first of all, before we even begin, so you know where I'm beaming from, is I'm actually in Lorton, Virginia, and one of my dearest friends, she was like my sister. And in fact, Andrea Kopp, we met because I do so much work with the NCEA. I'm an NCEA author. That's the National Catholic Educational Association. And Andrea was an executive there for years. And that's how we met. And I always say that I think that's why God actually drew me to the NCEA above and beyond the work I do with them, is because I got to meet, my surrogate sister. So I'm here and she's hovering in the background and her family is here and her fiance and her kids. In case I need tech help, we're good to go. So a thank you to Andrea and her family for making me feel so loved so I can give all of you all my love. My name is Jody, and I will be 60 years old actually next week. And from fifth grade through high school, I was the kid that nobody wanted to be caught dead hanging out with. I cried myself to sleep for the same reason that maybe some of your kids struggle too sometimes to fit in, simply for being different. My school years were a nightmare. I never imagined I would write about those school years. When I wrote my first memoir, Please Stop Laughing at Me, I had a successful career in the entertainment and publishing industries on the communication side. But I was always haunted by those years. So when I decided to pen my memoir, it was long before the anti-bullying movement. I was the first adult to ever talk about those experiences through an adult lens, looking back. And I'm the first survivor to ever pen a memoir. And it it really did establish me as the first voice of the anti-bullying movement. And for the past 25 years, I've been traveling to schools doing the same work that I'm so grateful Robin gave me the privilege of doing at Our Lady of Good Counsel, which is my INJA program. It's not just joking around, right? And something astonishing has happened along this quarter of a century journey. When I was a kid, there were certain things my parents and teachers did that made my life so much worse. Some things made it better, but a lot of the things the grown-ups did weren't great. And I started interviewing kids all around the country in the schools I go into, asking them, so tell me about the grown-ups in your lives. And all of the complaints they had about their parents and their teachers and principals were the same complaints that I had. And it made me realize the world may change. The heart of a child beats the same. So let me tell you what we're going to do for the next hour. I'm going to share with you all the things that your kids want you to know, not just about bullying, but about how they see and experience their world. Sometimes I'll be speaking to you in the voice of a grown-up. Other times I'll be speaking to you in the voice of a kid. Oh, also, I'm going to be giving you, which Robin will disseminate, a resources packet for parents. It'll have all the notes and highlights from tonight's session, blog posts, articles, and all kinds of cool stuff. Plus, communication tools for your kids to make them better communicators. And you can teach your kids these tools and practice them with them. And I'm also giving the teachers the same tools to give to the students, so we're consistent. So these are the things you should never say to a bully child, and why. Ignore the bullies and walk away. Why is that? counterintuitive because we're making a mistake that we grown-ups make far too often. We impose our adult logic onto kids and it will never work. If you want to understand your kids, if you want to understand how they think and experience their life, think of them as living in a place called opposite land. So if it doesn't make sense to you, it for sure will be logical for them. Okay. In the world of adults, okay, and ignore the bullies and walk away is an incredibly counterintuitive thing to say. Why? Well, in the world of adults, if someone is annoying you at work and you ignore them, they'll stop. Definitely. In the world of kids, it's the opposite. There are two types of popular kids in a school. The elite leader is the caring popular student. And then you have the elite tormentor. That's the popular student who creates drama, who will start rumors. Well, if you've got an elite tormentor picking on an established target that everyone always picks on, and that target ignores those bullies, it will only make them escalate the intensity of their unkindness. Also, what's the one thing we tell kids? We tell them, don't be a bystander. If you see somebody getting bullied, stand up and defend that person. Then why is it we'll turn around and say to that very same kid, oh, you're being bullied, just ignore it and walk away? Isn't that a mixed message? Aren't we, in effect, asking that child to be a bystander in his or her own life? The second thing we should never say to a bullied child is, leave them alone and they'll leave you alone. Every time a well meaning adult said that to me, in my head, I would scream, I don't want to be left alone. I'm already lonely. I don't want the kids at school to leave me alone. I want them to like me and to include me. Grown-ups don't understand anything. And the third thing you should never say to a bully child, and this is the one that always bothered me the most growing up. They're just jealous. Every time I heard that from a well-meaning adult, I would cry inside. Who cares why I don't fit in? That's all grown-ups ever do is blah, blah, blah. I don't want any more grown-up explanations. I just want to know what to do so that I'm not stuck at home another weekend without anyone to hang out with. And I also used to wonder, why is it that the grown-ups always expect us, the kids who are being picked on, to be the bigger people? How come we're always told stuff like, rise above it, don't give those bullies the satisfaction, turn the other cheek, consider the source, be the bigger person? How come the grown-ups never expect the mean kids to be bigger people? Isn't it bad enough that I've got to get from social studies to math class without being humiliated or worse? Now I've got to be a bigger person about it, or the adults are going to be disappointed in me on top of the kids at school already hating me. I hate adults. Now, why do we find ourselves sometimes using this cliche if we have? Well, it's because we believe if we can give our struggling child a reason why they don't fit in at school that isn't personal, they will take what's happening less to heart. And if this were happening to us in the workplace, that would be absolutely true. But in the world of opposite land, in the world of kids, it is the opposite. In the world of kids, we're trying to make our child think as we would. We're assuming that our child, to whom we say they're just jealous, can process emotion like an adult. And that when we tell them that that's the reason why they don't fit in, that it has nothing to do with them personally. It's just that these other kids are jealous. We think they'll feel better because if it was happening at work and someone said that to us, we would feel better too. But here's the thing. We're assuming, expecting, and in a way demanding that our child think and process emotion as we would. And no child can process emotion as an adult until they reach emotional maturity, which typically occurs in the early to mid 20s after the frontal lobe of the brain has completed its development. Until then, no kid can think or process like an adult. Now, I know that most of us know this on some level. Then why do we still find ourselves sometimes relying on that old cliche? Because we believe that our child is the exception to the emotional maturity rule. We believe that they are mature enough to feel better with this explanation. Why? I have worked with literally thousands of bullied kids, and I was one myself. And I have discovered there's absolutely a typical profile of the bullied student. I call it the ancient child. You guys might use the term old soul. And I know you guys know this kid. This is the kid who is typically more verbally, socially, and intellectually sophisticated than their peers, who has a capacity for empathy and compassion so far beyond their years. In fact, they're often tragically mislabeled overly sensitive or overly dramatic. It's not that they're overly sensitive. It's that if we compare them to their mainstream counterparts, they seem that way. But in reality, it's just that the other kids aren't sensitive enough. And what do we do as a culture? Instead of trying to help the kids who aren't as sensitive as they could be become more sensitive and self aware, we take the kids who already are and make them feel like there's something wrong with them. I have to wonder, what's wrong with us? The ancient child sees the world through an adult lens, but they still experience emotion and reality in their actual physical age. And we don't care why we don't fit in. We don't care that you think we're 13 going on 33. We just want to know what to do so that we have somewhere to hang out on the weekend. The fourth thing you should never say to a bully child, and there's lots of versions of this, but see if this feels familiar. This is the version I always got growing up. Jody, 25 years from now, you are going to be a famous writer, and all these people who are picking on you are going to be in jail or worse. And every time I heard that, I used to think, who cares about 20 years from now or when I'm older? I hurt now. I'm lonely now. To your kid, the future means after school, and the distant future means Saturday. And the last thing you should never say to a bullied child is, I know how you feel. I'd finally find the courage to confide in a grown up. And the well meaning grown up would interrupt me 2 sentences in. Grown-ups are very interrupty. They would interrupt me two sentences in and say, oh, Jody, I know how you feel, sweetie. When I was in 7th grade, and then off they'd go. And then the whole conversation would be about them. So what should you do and what should you say? I'm going to walk you through how to do an intervention with your child that will help them to open up. That's a game changer. Before I go there, I want to teach you a communications tool that if you can learn how to utilize this with your kids or really with anyone, but we'll focus on how we apply it towards our kids, it can deepen your relationship dynamic with your kids in a way that's almost hard to describe. It's called emotional credibility. There's a difference between authority and emotional credibility. Authority is what you have over your children. Emotional credibility is different. It's when your kids feel emotionally safe with you because they trust you to make good on your word. A lot of adults assume that because they have emotional credibility with their children, it automatically gives them, or because they have authority, sorry, it automatically gives them emotional credibility. And that isn't true. Emotional credibility has to be earned. A lot of step parents make this mistake. They think, oh, I have authority, so I have emotional credibility. No, this really does have to be worked on and earned. And there are 3 tenets of emotional credibility in communication. Tenet number 1, specificity. The more specific you are when you communicate with your kids, the more validated they feel. The more general you are, the more dismissed they feel. That's why kids don't like it when we say we'll see, because they know it's grown up code for leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered right now. And every time we say it, it makes that child feel this big. Now, in our defense, we're not trying to demean our kid when we say it. We just don't want to promise something on the fly and have to disappoint them later, right? But from our child's perspective, this is how they experience we'll see. No fair. That's all you ever say is we'll see, and it's no fair. And it's not all that fair. Next time, try this. Say to your child, I can't give you an answer right this second. I need time to process my decision. Then agree upon a time and a place where you will reconvene in person to give your decision, ideally in 24 to 48 hours. Then say to your child, before we leave right now, I'd like you to explain to me why this thing you're asking of me is so important. And then sit back and listen with compassionate neutrality. Don't interrupt and don't judge. And not only in what you say, but in your body language. You know, maybe an eyebrow going up or a clucking of the tongue or an uncomfortable shift. Our kids know our tells. They know when we're judging them. So just listen with compassionate neutrality. And oftentimes, as adults, we try to turn listening moments into teaching moments. And we have to have the patience to not do that and let listening moments be listening moments and teaching moments be teaching moments. So when your child is explaining why this thing they're asking of you is important, that's a listening moment. When they've concluded, say to your child, thank you for sharing that information with me. It will play an important role in my final decision. And then when you render that decision, when you give them your decision, if your answer is yes, explain specifically, step by step, how you came to that yes. If it's no, do the same thing. The real reward for this child isn't the yes, even if that's your answer. It's that you were specific about what your process would be. You were specific about a time frame. You allowed your child a specific participatory role, and you were specific in how you came to your decision. At the same time, you started teaching your child the art of prioritization, and you gave yourselves the same wiggle room as we'll see. You didn't promise anything and have to disappoint your child later, but by using the tool of specificity, you made your child feel validated instead of dismissed. And this is only one out of hundreds of examples of the power of specificity in communication. Tenet number 2 of emotional credibility in communication, immediacy. It is a myth that if somebody is angry or upset, it's best to give them time to cool off. Nobody cools off, they fester. We just tell ourselves that because we probably don't want to deal with it in the moment. If your child is freaking out or upset, deal with it as soon as you physically can. One of the biggest mistakes that any adult can make when dealing with a kid is telling a kid to calm down because it makes the child feel judged. When I interviewed kids and I asked them, tell me your 3 biggest complaints about adults, these were the complaints I got in this order. Adults make me feel judged all the time. Adults don't take me seriously enough. Adults are always tired. When you tell your child to calm down, the unspoken message there, the way they're receiving that, is that I'm the adult and I think you're being overly dramatic and I think you're overreacting. Even though that's not our intention, that's their experience. And think about yourselves. Have you ever been upset and someone said to you, like a significant other, calm down? Did you calm down on command, or did that just make you even madder? Kids are the same way. And it always astounds me. Like, we as adults will tell a kid to calm down and then be annoyed when they don't. And yet we ourselves can't do it. And whenever I'm going to work with a kid and they're upset, I use this centering exercise. So typically, what I'll do, and this is just suggestions, this is just food for thought. But the way I'll typically do it is I'll say to that child, wow, you're upset. And I want to be your best listener ever. I need your help for that. I need to be calm and centered so that I can listen to you the way you deserve to be heard, with my heart and my mind in my ears. And then I'll say to the child, okay, now let's take a deep breath. Okay, in through the nose. Hold it, hold it, hold it. No cheating. All right, now when we exhale, I tell the child, I want you to think about all the things that are making you mad and sad and scared today. And I want you to blow all of that mad, sad, and scared when you exhale. Blow it all out. And I'll do the same thing with my mad, sad, and scaries from the day. And then I'll say exhale. And then I'll do that once or twice. And then I'll tell the child, thank you for doing such an awesome job in getting us both centered and calm. Now I can listen to you with all of my heart and mind and ears. I want to be your best listener ever. Talk to me. And I take the onus off the child. And I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, and every time I say this in the teacher workshop, everyone cracks up, but it's true. I know you're thinking, Jody's very entertaining. She's pretty good with virtual too, but she's a whack-a-mole. If I were to drop everything every time my kid was having a dramatic moment, I would lose control of my household and my emotional and mental well-being. Here's the thing, everybody. If you have a child who has an attention tapeworm, like no matter how much attention you give them, it's never enough. If they always have to be, sort of the center of everything, if they're always interrupting grown-up conversations or being disruptive in class, or even engaging in behaviors that make you wonder if they actually want to get in trouble. All of those are indicators of something I call a lacuna, like a hole or a gap inside. Before becoming annoyed by your child's behavior and focusing on modifying it, seek to understand what's causing the hunger first, and then work backwards from there. When a child is scared or hurting, they act out. And as adults, we become so quick to correct the behavior that we never look at the yearning that's creating it. And the third tenet of emotional credibility and communication, and my very favorite as a professional communicator, is positioning and semantics. Simply put, present it the way you want it perceived. And I'm going to teach you some really cool word swaps. And by the way, everybody, these are things that kids taught me. And it's communications mastery. I always say to teachers, and I say this to parents too, a good parent teaches their children, right? But an extraordinary parent learns more from their children than they even teach them. And this is what I've learned from kids. Okay. Kids don't like it. when grown-ups use the word discuss or discussion because it makes them feel like they're in trouble even when they're not. And indeed, that word does have a subliminal trigger. My girlfriend left me a voicemail recently saying, listen, we need to discuss something. And I immediately called her and said, are you mad at me? And she said, no. Why? I was just asking if we could maybe do Greek tonight instead of Italian for dinner because I'm really hungry for Greek food. Oh, for a lot of people, not just kids, the word discussion has a trigger. I prefer to swap it with talk through. Kids also despise the word consequence because it makes them feel prejudged. And think about it. It's true. Think about this. When we say to our kids, if you don't do this, this will be the consequence, or if you do this, this will be the consequence. The tacit message there is, I don't have faith in you to do the right thing of your own volition. So I'm going to use this scary word to intimidate you into doing the right thing. I had a girl, a middle school student, say to me, yeah, my mom used that word on me the other day and it really made me mad. And I said, well, why? She said, well, there was this situation and I was going to do the right thing because I really wanted to make my mom proud. And then when she used that word on me, it's like, I don't even care anymore because now if I do the right thing, my mom's not going to think I did it to make her proud. She's just going to think I did it because I was afraid of the consequence. So, like, what's the point even? I prefer the term result because result is neutral. A child can create a negative or a positive result. And whenever I talk to a child about behavior modification, I never lead with the negative. I always lead with the positive. For example, I'll say to that kid, if you do this, then this will be our, the inclusive R, this will be our result. And then I lead with whatever the most positive outcome will be of doing the right thing. And then I say, if you do this, this will be our result. And then I articulate the negative. And I'll say to this child, you are the boss here. You're the boss of your own result. And I know that you are going to create the most awesome positive result possible because I have faith in you. And parents, when you're communicating with a kid, this, if you do this, this is the result and it's the positive thing, and then you articulate what the negative result will be, it's got to be real. Parents who care more about their kids being their friends end up with adult children who won't want to be your friend or necessarily have much of a relationship with you, because chances are that they will resent you when they become parents for not setting the bar high enough for them. Sometimes parents, your kids are going to hate you. They will. And I know it's scary. Here's the litmus test. If you have to make a decision that you know it's going to just really upset your child, or perhaps motivate your child to say those dreaded I hate you words, ask yourself this: is the decision that I'm making on my child's behalf right now 100% because it is what is absolutely best for my child, or is part of the reason I'm making this decision is because it's what's convenient for me? If your answer to question number one is yes, it has passed the litmus test. If your answer to question number two is yes, it has not passed the litmus test, and you have to go back and rethink. And the final overarching question to double check that you have executed your litmus test honestly and correctly is to ask yourself, 20 years from now, when I look back on this moment, how will I wished I would have handled it? And then work backwards from there. And also, I like to turn problem statements into challenge statements. A problem statement is a statement of what's wrong. It's negative. A challenge statement is a statement of what we can do together to change or improve the situation. For example, problem statement. I'm flunking math because it's boring. Challenge statement. We need to come up with 3 creative ways to get you excited about the wonder and magic of math in our daily lives. Problem statement. I hate school. I don't have any friends and I hate it. Challenge statement. We need to come up with a specific plan of action to help you meet and make new friends. Let's start now. Step 1. See the difference? And if you can train yourself to see the world through this lens, that you automatically, as a reflex, turn problem statements into challenge statements, and you teach your children to do this, you are preparing your kids to genuinely have the bandwidth to change the world. So, how do we intervene? How do we do an intervention to get a child, like a bully child, to open up while simultaneously reinforcing these tenets? Step number 1, you're going to sit down with your child. And when you sit down with your child, there's a few things to consider. No devices. Your devices are off, their devices are off. Okay? And be aware of your body language. We don't want to cross our legs or our arms because that says I'm the adult. We don't want to lean too far back in our chair because that says I'm tired. We don't want to lean too far forward because that says hurry up. We want to just sit relaxed in the chair, shoulders back, open, and listening mode. It's called compassionate listening posture. Step number 2, we're going to say to our child, I don't know how you feel. I can't imagine what you're going through. It must be really hard. And then we're going to sit back and listen. If there's an awkward silence, just breathe through it and maintain your posture. Now, sometimes when a child is opening up for the first time, particularly about bullying, they may blindside you. For example, well, when Amber and I were cheating on the math test, Brianna, Parents, do not stop that intervention. I don't care if your kid tells you that they tied up the mailman and they stuffed him in Robin's trunk. Okay. I'm sure she has air holes in her car. He's going to be fine for the next few minutes, because if you stop that intervention, your child will stop opening up and you may never get to the bottom of why they're acting out in the first place. And I'm not just talking about something you say. Be in your bodies, everybody. Be in your bodies. Your children are like ET, okay? They're so much more hip than you think. And when you are judging them, they know your tells, the eyebrow that goes up, or the nervous shoulder, or the clucking of the tongue, or the parental sigh. They know these tells. And if they feel that you are either judging them or that you are freaking out, you're done. They won't open up anymore. They might keep talking, but they're going to hold back. So just let it go over your head. And at the end of the intervention, okay, sidebar, all right, if we were in person, I would hop over there for my sidebar. So imagine me hopping over here. At the end of the intervention, here's how I recommend approaching whatever that blind side was. After you've done the intervention and you've gotten to the bottom of what's going on, say to your child, thank you for opening up to me. I'm so proud of you for that. By the way, that thing that slipped out, let's you and I work together on a 3-point plan of action to help you conquer that challenge. Then whatever it is with your child, you're going to turn that problem statement into a challenge statement. Then you'll come up with an action plan. First, we do this, then this, then this. Each action point, no more than a sentence, 3 only. Then you're going to write this down or type it up and have 2 copies with 2 signature lines and a date line. And you say to your child, this is our 3-point plan of action contract. We both agree to honor the terms of this contract. And if one of us wants to change the terms, then we have to get together, talk through the changes and agree upon them. And then we'll write the changes in the margin and we'll initial and date the changes. Do we agree? Yes. All right, let's sign our contracts. Now look at what this has done. You've shown your child that they can come to you with anything and never to be afraid. When I ask kids, what are your two biggest fears about adults? This is what I get from them. First, an adult is going to embarrass me in front of my friend, or second, the adult is going to freak out, because that's all adults ever do is freak out. So you've just shown your child that you're not a freaker outer, that they can come to you with anything. And you've also taught them how contracts work in the real world, which is an awesome life skill. And if your child tries to gaslight you later, you have a contract. Okay, now back to our intervention steps. So we sit down, compassionate listening posture. Step number 2, I don't know how you feel. I can't imagine what you're going through. It must be hard. Then our child opens up. After our child opens up, we say to them, let's talk about an action that we can take together today, immediacy, to address this challenge, positioning and semantics. Kids don't like it when grown-ups say, let's think about some things we can do, because kids don't want to think when they're hurting. It's too general, it's too passive. They're action oriented. Let's talk about an action that we can take together today to address this challenge. Now you've gotten your child to open up. You've promised to take immediate action. What action do you take? The biggest mistake that schools and parents make when dealing with a bullying related situation that leads to more bullying related suicides than any other mistake is this. You find out that your child is being bullied or ostracized. And because you love your child so much, you immediately spring into action. You demand a meeting with the parents of the bullies and the principal and the superintendent and the counselor. And the whole focus is on appropriate punishment for the bullies. That's all anyone can focus on over here at the institutional level. Meanwhile, bleeding inside spiritually is that bully child. There is a myth about bullying related suicide. And that myth is that the kids who attempt or complete it due to bullying do so because of the bullying. That isn't true. I know. It's not the bullying itself. It's the loneliness. It's this feeling that nobody gets me, not my parents, not the kids at school, not my teachers. Nobody gets me and nobody ever will. So what difference does it make if I don't fit in? What difference does it make if I'm here or not? Because I'm always going to be that person that nobody gets. That's the trigger. The first thing, look at me, everybody. The first thing you need to do, if you suspect that your child is struggling with their peer group or being bullied, is perform triage. And triage consists of one word: hope. You need to give your child hope that just because they don't fit in at school doesn't mean that they don't belong in the world. Sit down with your child, jump on the internet, and research organized activities for kids. Start with the public sector, park districts, local libraries, chambers of commerce, local museums. Then the private sector, rock fantasy camps, drama clubs, dance studios, martial arts. And go one town or one parish over so that it'll be new faces that your child meets. And go through all this, sit with your child at your iPad or your computer and let them see what's out there and let them choose something they'd like to participate in. Don't make the decision for them. Let them decide. And then enroll them. And after the first few times, encourage your child to have a pizza party and invite their new friends from this activity. Let's say it's readers theater or a book club at the local library. Tell your child, let's have a pizza party and invite your book club friends over for Friday night. And then invite their parents and, you know, get to know the parents of the other kids and start nurturing this new social nucleus. It'll give you support, and it will also support your child's new social life. And here's what this new activity is going to do. On the days when school is extra lonely, your child can say to themselves, yeah, but I'm going to see my real friends at book club. And also, this new activity will give your child more social confidence. And the more socially confident your child is, the less of a target they'll be at school. And also, sometimes kids who are bullied or just kind of left out try too hard, and it makes things worse. Well, if your child is getting their need for acceptance fulfilled outside of school, they're less tense and desperate at school. And as that desperation diminishes, their classmates often come around. And it will give you the time you need to deal with all this stuff over here. Because I'm not saying the stuff over here isn't important. I'm just saying this is more important first. Now, what do you do though if your kid is being bullied or ostracized and you've tried everything and nothing has worked, or the parents of the bullies are bullies themselves, or they're in denial, not my child, or you feel like you've gone to the school and the school hasn't done anything, or the teacher or the principal? Like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do if you're the parent of the kid who's getting accused of being an elite tormentor or a bully? And it's killing you inside because you know your kid's not a bad kid. Maybe something's been going on at home and you're tense and stressed and the household is stressed, and you know that your child is just acting out. And yet everybody's on you about your child's bad behavior. What do you do? How do we handle it? I'm going to dispel a myth for you guys about bullying. I know sometimes, even if nobody admits it, if you have a child who's bullied, that there's always that moment that you often won't even admit to your spouse or even yourself, where you say to yourself, why don't they like my kid? Why is this happening? It's not because the bullies don't like your kid. Look at me. Bullying is rarely, if ever, personal. The bully is almost always a child in pain acting out in a cry for help. When I was in seventh grade, there was this boy, Jerry. He was an elite tormentor, really popular. And one day, he cornered me at school in a snowstorm, held me down, shouted, "Snowball fight!" And all the kids, girls and boys, started pummeling me with snow. And then Jerry said, "Hey, you guys, let's tickle her. And whoever can get the most snowballs in her mouth from a distance wins." Until I started to cry and was gasping for breath. And they ran off and left me there. My grandpa was furious. So he and I convinced the principal to suspend Jerry. He was suspended for a week. At the end of that suspension, when he came back to school, he was emaciated. No one noticed or cared. I didn't. Decades later, the night of my school reunion that changed my life forever, I found out that Jerry was mean to a lot of kids that semester. That was the same semester that his mom abandoned the family, left Jerry and his 6 younger siblings, and his dad descended into depression and was neglecting them, not even feeding them. So every day, Jerry would sneak food from the school cafeteria and bring it home to feed his siblings. And when he got that 1 week suspension and lost that extra food source, what little food there was at home, he gave to his brothers and sisters, and he just went hungry. Jerry wasn't mean to me because he was a bully or a bad kid and deserved to be punished. He was the scared, hungry little boy The meanest thing this girl Nadia ever did to me, she invited me to a party my junior year of high school. I'd never been invited to anything. I spent all day getting ready. And the night of the party, the address she gave me, it was a parking lot in a forest preserve. And all the cool kids came out, some of whom I idolized. And they looked at me and said, like, we would ever invite you to anything. And they got in their cars and they went to the real party and left me standing there. And I remember hatred filling me. I could taste it. And I would carry that taste for decades. And the night of my reunion, I found out that Nadia was mean to a lot of kids that year, because that was the same year her dad took his own life and her mother wasn't getting her the support she needed. Nadia wasn't mean to me because she was a bad girl or a bully and needed to be punished. She was scared and alone and missed her dad. How I wish I could go back and handle those things differently, and how I resent my family for how they handled it on my behalf. Now, I'm not saying that if your child is being bullied or ostracized, that you shouldn't do anything about it if the bully is going through their own hell. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you can understand this, it can make forgiveness and healing much easier. And everybody, why do you have your kids in Catholic school to begin with? I'm guessing it's because you want your children to learn and grow in an environment of tolerance and compassion and forgiveness. Well, the school can teach these qualities and they can exemplify them as best as they can. But everybody, parents, you are your kids' first teachers. It starts and stops with you. And do you want your children to grow up to be angry and petty and people who hold grudges? Or do you want them to grow up to be reasonable and gracious and forgiving? Well, if you want your children to be the latter, you need to exemplify those qualities yourself. And how better to exemplify them than in how you treat your significant other, how you treat your principal and your child's teachers, and most profoundly, how you work with your child's bullies and their families. Traditional punishment doesn't work. It only makes an angry child angrier and an insensitive child more insensitive. And what if your child's bully or their elite tormentor is your Jerry or your Nadia? What then? I espouse a supplemental approach to traditional punishment called compassionate discipline. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how it works, sort of ushering into our big finish. So let's say that you have a 13-year-old boy, right? And he's being a little disrespectful of his grandparents. So you say to him, if you aren't more respectful to your grandparents, I am taking away your iPhone. And he's not, and so you take it. Then 2 days later, you see him mowing their lawn and watching reruns of Lawrence Welk on PBS. That is one bum deal for the grandparents, isn't it? Because they're not getting quality time with their grandson because he loves them and wants to spend time with them. He just wants his iPhone back. And what precedent has that set in that young kid's psyche? That his grandparents and his iPhone are of equal value. And we wonder why our world is so screwed up. I don't wonder at all. I know precisely why it is. Instead, next time, hand that 13-year-old son a notebook and a pen and say, for the next 5 days, you are going to go out of your way to perform one thoughtfully considered, meaningful, unexpected act of kindness for a different person each day. The first two recipients will be your grandparents. The other three you may choose. Immediately upon completion of each act of kindness, you're going to write down what it was, how that recipient felt, and how that made you feel here. Then you're going to hand this notebook to the recipient, who will sign it, date it, and provide a cell phone number. Recipients under 18, parental signature, and cell required. And I want this notebook in exactly 5 days, young man. And I'm going to call these people to verify your compliance. If I find out you have complied, this will be our result, and lead with the positive. If I find out that you have not complied, this will be our result. And then whatever that result is, and we talked about this before, parents, it needs to be a doozy. It needs to be something that when your child becomes a parent and they have to discipline their child for the first time, they will call you on the phone and say, Mom, Dad, I just realized, remember that thing that happened and I was so mad at you and I told you I hated you? I'm really sorry, because I love you for that. Because now I've got to discipline your grandchild, and you showed me how to do it with love. Thank you. Another example of compassionate discipline, and all it means is finding creative ways for our kids to access their empathy and develop it like a muscle. So let's say that you have a child who's a little materialistic, you know, and they don't seem to exhibit the kind of empathy or compassion for the homeless, or, immigrants. Maybe, maybe they see the homeless begging on the streets, or they see something on TV that depicts someone suffering, and their empathy, just their compassion doesn't seem to be there. And or maybe your child's a little bit materialistic, a little bit elitist, and it's concerning you. What are you going to do? Ground them? Or take away their iPad privileges? It's not going to make them more tenderhearted. You can do this. As a family, one Saturday afternoon with your child, go to a soup kitchen that serves families. And with your child, talk to the families who are patrons of the soup kitchen about their dreams and aspirations. And then your child has to come up with a way that you as a family can make the patrons of the soup kitchen feel validated. Maybe it's putting on a talent show and bringing in a karaoke machine, or painting a beautiful mural together in the front hallway, or putting together a letter of encouragement and framing it and hanging it in the dining room. But I promise you this: if you have a child who's not as compassionate or empathetic as you would hope, if they're exposed to real families who truly have so little in this world, they will never look down on the students who get their shoes from, Nordstrom's, or from the Salvation Army instead of Nordstrom's again. What's the one thing that we all want for our kids besides the obvious, right? We want them to be loved unconditionally when they get older, right? And in order to be loved unconditionally, you have to be able to love that way yourself. And unconditional love, which is fueled by tolerance and compassion and forgiveness, is not something that you can punish into a kid, or command, or preach, or teach. These are qualities that each and every one of you must inspire by your example. Now, there's lots of ways to inspire unconditional love, but I'm just going to give you one example to get your creative juices flowing, and then we will sort of segue into our conclusion. So let's say that you have a 14-year-old daughter, pleasant, reasonable age, and it's her first sleepover of the school year. And you look at the guest list and you see there's some really popular kids on that guest list. No wonder she's in a good mood. but you notice her best friend since kindergarten isn't on the list. And when you ask her about it, she says, well, my other friends don't like her and it would be awkward. Can't force her to invite that girl. I was a forced invitation in middle school, and I still carry the scars from that night. You can do this. And this is just to get your creative juices flowing on compassionate discipline. Say to your elite tormentor trainee, say, you know what we're going to do tonight? We are going to adopt a pet. And then as a family, go to a nearby animal shelter. And when the manager asks you if you want to walk up and down the cages so that you can pick a pet, you say no, because you don't want to reinforce that example of conditional love and pick a pet the same way that your daughter is picking who's cool enough for her party. You want to set an example of unconditional love. And you say to the manager, no, we want the pet who's been overlooked the most. And when he brings out that fur ball, I don't care if it's a bald, toothless, flatulent, three-legged dog. You give that fur ball love and affection, and you let your child bear witness to what happens when a spirit who's been dismissed and forgotten, same way she is her best friend, finally gets the love they've been yearning for, particularly like an older dog or cat. If you want your kids to be more grateful, the next time you're at the mall with your child and there's a custodian bending over to pick up garbage that someone carelessly threw on the floor, walk over to him, introduce your child and yourself to him, thank him for keeping the mall so clean, ask him his name and something about his life, and then march in to the management office at the mall and say to the manager on duty, we'd like to commend Mr. Rivers, the custodian, for doing such an extraordinary job. And we'd like to write a letter of commendation to his boss and his boss's boss. Can you help us with that right now? How often do our kids see us complain about bad service? And how often do they see us honor those who give so much for so little that many of us see, but we actually don't see? If you want your kids to be kinder, gentler souls, start with you. The next time you're home and you're on the phone with the cable company or the credit card company and you think your child can't hear you because they're in the other room doing homework, and all you want to do is get NBC and you're not getting it, and you've got some third-party call center in Bangladesh or the Philippines with some young girl talking from a script who you can barely understand because she speaks almost no English, and you find yourself saying supervisor, supervisor, and you're getting more and more annoyed and your voice is taking on a more and more imperious tone, and your child hears that. Instead, stop, breathe, and say to yourself, this girl who's speaking from a script and driving you nuts is probably some young teenage mom who has to work god awful hours in conditions that we as Americans could never even fathom to take care of her children. And instead of getting annoyed or imperious, ask her about her life. So, what's it like where you are? Is it sunny or is it summer? Is it winter? Do you have kids? Yeah, mine are in the next room doing homework. Tell me about your kids, and connect with her on a human level and watch how much more quickly your issue gets resolved. Everybody, look at me. And I know this is hard, but work in partnership with the school and with the parents of your children's bullies on compassionate forms of discipline that allow those bulliers and elite tormentors and any kid who's struggling with mean behavior to access their empathy and develop it. And if you're the parent of a child who's being unkind to their fellow classmates, and you know it's because there's something going on at home and they're acting out because you yourself are stressed and overwhelmed. Privacy, schmivacy. I'm going to repeat that. Privacy, schmivacy. You are not a school community. You are a school family, and families are messy. So if you're that parent, go to your principal and say, Robin, I know my child has been awful lately, and I'm not making excuses at all. This is what's been going on at home, and my kid is picking up on my frustration and my angst. Would you set up a meeting with the parents of the kids that my child has been unkind to? First of all, I want to apologize. And secondly, I want them to know what's going on. And I want to ask their help and support, not only to me as a mom and that I need their support as a friend, as friends, but to work with me and for us to work in partnership on compassionate, restorative forms of discipline that allow my child to deepen and become a kinder, more self-aware person, and that allow all of our children to deepen in their characters and their Catholicity. Your children's greatest hope for happiness lies in your ability to love and forgive and be tolerant. Nadia, who caused me to cry myself to sleep more years than I could count back in school, she would become the maid of honor at my wedding. Now, the marriage didn't last, but the friendship survived. Parents, be the person that you hope and pray your child becomes. It starts with you. And I want to thank you so much for giving me your time tonight and listening to me. I am so humbled. And you have an amazing principal and vice principal. They are just amazeballs. And if anyone is interested in my work, I also do compassionate communications trainings for corporations, everyone from the C-suite all the way down to frontline personnel. I train everyone from public figures and government officials to CEOs and English language learners on how to communicate with compassion, grace, and clarity. And so if you're interested in that, my corporate side of what I do, let me know. And again, if anyone wants, please stop laughing at me. Put your name on a list in the principal's office, and then I'll work with her on creating a fundraiser for the school, and then and make sure that you let her know how you want your book and or books inscribed. And everybody, thank you. I'm so humbled that you wanted to share your time with me, and your kids were so amazing today. And you have such an amazing community, and I feel honored to be now a friend of this community. So thank you.
Awesome. Jody, thank you so much. I know you have just done wonderful things, given us so many tools that we can put into place. And we do have an amazing community, and I'm glad that you were able to see that. We will definitely be in touch, and I will get the parents that list in case you want the book. I like the part, because I have read it, I like the part where you said have the parents read it first, right? Or read it with them, right? That's important. So parents, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on tonight. I know you're very busy. We had a wonderful turnout. We have recorded this, so I will get it out soon for those that weren't able to attend. But I'm so grateful for this community and for us to work together so that every single person in our community is the best version of whom God made them to be. And it takes a team effort. So thank you for being a part of the team. And I think that's about it, right, Jody? We're gonna sign off
Yeah,
now.
we're gonna sign off because my vocal cords are droopy now. But but Everybody, thank you so much. And I am always just an email or a phone call away. My website is jodyblanco.com with 2 E's. You'll get that digital resources packet. And I encourage you to go through the tools section and teach your kids these tools and practice these tools with your kids. It will help them to become better communicators, both with each other, with other kids, but in how they communicate to adults. And it's even good practice for grown-ups, and it's fun. Anytime you can learn something with your children together, that's fun. And again, thank you to Our Lady of Good Counsel. You have incredible administrators there, and I am so privileged to know them and to call them friends now. And thank you.
Okay, awesome. Jody, thank you. Good night. Take care.
Bye. Bye,
Everybody
everybody.
else, I'm gonna stop the recording. And thank you very much for being on tonight. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so then Robin, I'm gonna jump off and
Yep,
then I'll touch base with you tomorrow and we'll catch up and talk, okay?
that sounds
Bye,
great.
everybody.
Bye.
Big
Bye-bye.
hugs.
Thank you.